Hey guys, Diabetic Avengers here again. We're going to do a little video here about another diabetic with his story. This is Mike. Good guy, known him for a while. We've helped each other out when it comes down to sharing insulin and whatnot, talking about stories that we've been through, just someone that actually understands what you've been through. And not a lot of people really understand what we go through. So you heard my story in the first video, so I brought him in so you can kind of hear a different perspective of another diabetic. And so Mike, when did you get diabetes?
What's up, everybody? I was diagnosed when I was 13 years old. The date, actually, I mean, everybody's always going to remember the date. But
and how old are you now?
I am now 31, so it's been about 17 years, almost 18 years.
It's a long time.
Diagnosed January 2nd, 2003, 01, 02, 03. It was definitely a weird time to be diagnosed.
When you were diagnosed, like, did you, how did it happen? Did you get like a phone call in the car with your mom, or?
Well, going into it, I had played Pop Warner football for the first time in my life that fall. Naturally working out a little bit more, started losing some weight, going through puberty, I was getting taller, and naturally body was adjusting, so we didn't really think anything of it. And then I progressed into the winter, not working out as much, still losing a bunch of weight, drinking gallons and gallons and gallons of water a day, super dehydrated, going to the bathroom. That's where I lost a lot of weight, was I was going to the bathroom 10, 15 times a day, waking up in the middle of the night a bunch of times. So my mother, gratefully that she, her niece is also type 1 diabetic, and she recognized some of the symptoms. Got me to the doctor the first day after Christmas break, January 2nd, and was diagnosed. Came back positive.
So when you were diagnosed, did you how'd you get to the hospital? What happened?
So
what was did she bring you to the doctors, and then they were bring them to the hospital, or?
Yeah, I went to the doctor, just the general physician. They do general basic quick physical, pee test, dip in this, stick in the pee. And at that point they decided that I was diabetic. I think my sugar was roughly 500 at the time I was diagnosed.
Yeah, that's high. Yeah, because 400 is equivalent to being submitted to ICU.
Right.
So if you got 500, they know there's something definitely wrong.
Yeah, sugar was a little over 500. They said if I had gone another week or two, I would have been comatose. Which, I mean, I've been in diabetic ketoacidosis before, and that's not fun. So being comatose, I can only imagine the pains of that, And
how long were you in the hospital for?
I went into the hospital on January the 2nd, and I left on January the 5th, January the 6th. I was there for 4 days altogether.
Okay.
That was old school stuff where they teach you how to draw insulin out of a vial and mix insulin. They were even mixing insulin back then.
Because when I was there, they were sticking it in an orange, so you could
practice in the orange, as they say. It's like going into your arm.
Skin, yeah.
Lots of finger pricks. I mean, losing weight wasn't the only issue though. Prior to being diagnosed, I had really dry skin, dry feet. My feet were super cracked and bleeding all the time.
I'm sure it still gets like that too.
It can, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, now with insulin therapy, I'm on the pump, which definitely helps maintain A1C. My A1C is down significantly.
And A1C is, an average blood sugar for about 3 months.
About a 3-month average. It's not a real, it's not going to say 120 like a blood sugar. Mine's below a 7, so that's
amazing. I just got mine to a 7.8, and that's the best I've ever had it. And a normal one is between 6 and 7.
Doctors push her below 7, so after 18 years, I'm finally there.
That's amazing. Now, when you were in the hospital, though, so it was only just 4 days, 4 or 5 days?
About 4 days. Family stopping in, talking to doctors. My family's really good with it. They're definitely vigilant. All my family pretty much learned what diabetes was when I was diagnosed with it. Because generally,
well, the only other person was, you said, your mother's niece?
My mom's niece, but that's not a biological cousin of mine.
Okay.
My mom's best friend's daughter is the only
Gotcha.
diabetic really in the
Okay.
family, you know.
So you're like the first generation diabetic in your family.
Yes, yeah,
Which
first
is, I didn't
one.
know that because I'm the first generation. My
Oh, really?
brother got it a year and a half later.
Oh wow.
So we are the two generation diabetics in the family. But
Yeah, like
goes
where
to
to
show,
start?
people are always like, you can get diabetes, or no, you have to be born with it.
Clearly
There's
you
two
don't.
people here that were born with it.
How old are you when you were diagnosed?
I was 7, and now I'm
Okay.
31 as well. So it's been about a little over 23 years, close to 24 years with
Yeah.
that mark, with the months and whatnot. But when you switched over to the pump, what was your A1C before that?
All right. Well, this is my second time on the pump now. I use the Medtronic pump.
Show the camera.
It's hooked into the backside right now. I'll show you a little more, and that's what helps me read my sugars. That's the Guardian sensor. So that talks to the insulin pump, tells you where my sugars are at now.
And what people don't realize too about the pump is when they're like, how is it connected? So you see this wire, there's a little plastic tube and a needle goes in it. You stick it in, then you stick the plastic tube's covered by that little needle, and you take out that needle, and that plastic tube's still in you, correct?
Yeah, it's like a little catheter, like an IV if
Yeah.
you're getting
Exactly.
dehydrated at the hospital and you need fluids. Essentially the same thing, just a smaller gauge. But this is my second time on it. The first time I was on it was in high school, and I honestly hated it. Hated every second of it. It didn't have the technology that it has now. It wouldn't tell me what my blood sugar was, just by pushing the button. I would have to poke my finger all the time.
And that's what the thing on the back of his arm is. It
Yeah.
reads with the pump, so that tests his blood sugar, and then the pump knows what his blood sugar is.
So I'll get warnings now. Heads up, you're going low. Heads up, your sugar's really high. Time to take some insulin. Time to drink some juice. It's really, like, technology has advanced a lot, which I'm a big advocate of now. It used to be super exhausting to
Yeah.
have to pay attention to all this stuff.
That's why I get scared about going out. Like, I may be able to get back on the pump. I'm jumping through hoops to get it. But when I first had it, when I was, I think I was 10 years old when I first got it, 10, between 10 and 12. But this little wire right here, it cringed while I was sleeping. So I wasn't getting insulin.
Yep.
So I went into DKA, diabetes ketoacidosis, and I was in ICU the next morning because of that.
There's been times where I walk down a hallway and it gets snagged on a doorknob.
And yeah, and if it rips out of you, like that doesn't feel good.
And he and I are both in the restaurant world, so being stuck in dinner rush and you have some diabetes issues, people don't really understand.
They don't at all. And sometimes people will see your face go ghost and pale, and they're like, "Are you okay?" And it's like, maybe. I'm not really sure.
I'll be
right
okay,
now.
but I'm not really fine.
But it's kind of like if you're wearing a watch and you work in the restaurant world, if you're wearing a nice watch, you got to be careful because you might hit a corner and it's going to hit the face, it's going to crack and ruin the watch. It's the same, you got this on your hip.
It's more expensive than most watches.
Yeah. How much does that run? Like an average cost?
Before insurance got involved, it's between $10,000 and $11,000.
Insurance obviously helps a lot, but an average cost if you didn't have insurance, $10,000 to $11,000.
Yeah.
Just to live a normal life.
Just to maintain health
Yeah, that's
as
a scary
normal as
thought.
possible. I would never say we live a normal life.
That's true too. So now when you were in high school, that's when you first got the pump?
Yes, I got the pump going into high school freshman year. A lot of learning on that one. Like I said, the technology was so much less back then, so it was a task every day to maintain. I was a little more active too. I played football, I played baseball, I wrestled.
So that had to be tough with the pump.
There were some down parts to it, some stressful additives on the side. After high school,
Why'd you get rid of the pump?
Well, after high school, going into college, it just was less realistic. It just wasn't working out. I had 4 years of not liking it.
And the technology wasn't there, and you're playing the sport, and it just wasn't
The
working.
stress of having it would fluctuate my blood sugars.
And then what made you go back on the pump?
So now I'm back on it almost 12 years later, I would say it was, a little more. I went into diabetes ketoacidosis back in December, so that basically means that your blood sugar is so high for an extended period of time that your blood essentially turns into acid.
Yeah, and the other one that I heard was ketones, which is basically poison balls in your system.
Right.
So ketoacidosis will create those poisonous balls, and then when you overexert yourself,
Goes
they
to your
break open
bloodstream.
and just kind of basically slowly kill you and deteriorate your muscles.
Yeah. So that's one of the long-term things that we as diabetics try to prevent from happening.
So that's what made you want to go back on the pump. So you didn't have to go through that again?
Yes. Well, so I was DK, went in the hospital. I was in ICU for I think 5 or 6 days this time around. Fortunately, I found an endocrinologist while I was there.
Which is a diabetic doctor.
Yeah, doctor who specializes in the hormone system. So being diabetic, your body doesn't make the insulin, which is the hormone that breaks down the food and the sugar. So my endocrinologist really pushed this insulin pump on me. I got put on it day number 1 of quarantine. Basically St. Patrick's Day was when I got put onto it this year.
It's probably a good time. You probably ate a lot of food during that quarantine.
And I had a lot of time to learn, you know. I had a good
Yeah.
6 weeks of being unemployed where I could focus on myself and not focus on my tables or my
Yeah,
friends,
it's
you know.
pretty
It was a really good time to take advantage of.
It's always good to focus on yourself.
And like I said, now my A1C was a 10.4 back in December, and now less than a year later it's below a 7. So big advocate of the pump.
And a 10.4 is probably what, around like 300-400 average for your
average.
blood
So
sugar.
above and below that, I mean, that means my sugars used to hit 500 and sit there for a while.
Which again, 400 is equivalent to going into ICU. So for it to average around that, you feel a lot of it's probably hard to wake up. You're very groggy. You don't feel good. You randomly get nauseous.
I mean,
it's
living that kind of life, it interferes with your relationships with your friends, relationships with significant others.
You tell me
jobs.
about you get cranky too. They say when your blood sugars go too high as a type of diabetic, you can get mood swings.
Mm-hmm.
And people, you know, your friends who know you're a diabetic say test your sugar, make it normal. Therefore, you're not having those mood swings. Am I wrong?
Right.
And it's a scary thought.
I mean, that's why, like on my car keys, I have the little badge. I'm a diabetic. God forbid ever crash into a telephone pole. A cop may think that I'm drunk instead of being diabetic, and
scary thought.
And could get knocked around instead of helped out. You know, so you never really know. So always rolling the dice.
So hey guys, I just want to say thank you for joining us. Michael, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
I'm sure we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about this, get a little bit more into detail with the story. Definitely check out the website, like and subscribe. Check out all the social media platforms, and let's make awareness Diabetic Avengers.